Okay, the topic for today, again, what I'm doing is I'm covering a topic that I think is important, and then I'm trying to impart the information that I understand based upon the various channeling sources that I've come across over the years. So the topic for today is cancer. Now, first of all, let me preface this by saying I don't want to be flippant and just cavalier with this and say, oh, yeah, you can just cure cancer, think happy thoughts. I, as well as probably most people out there, have lost family and friends to cancer and know many other people who have. I have been in the situation where I've known a lot of new age mumbo jumbo, if you want to call it that, or I've collected a lot of information about healing and things, but I didn't didn't want to like bombast people with it and insult them, by giving them something that they might take as just a flippant answer or something. So I don't know. Okay, enough of that. This is about what the various sources have to say about cancer, and I just think this is so important. I know it's so important because this affects so many people today. So the gist of it, the short story is what the sources I have read say unanimously is that you can cure cancer. You can cure your cancer. So speaking to people who are suffering from cancer. And if you know someone else and you're telling them about this, let them know. They can cure their cancer, provided, I'll give one caveat that I've read. Uh, Apparently, cancer is a common method that entities use to terminate an incarnation so that they can move on and start anew, kind of like cleaning the slate. So for a lot of entities, if they kind of get backed into patterns of thought and into backed into a corner where they can't really get out, and things are just they're not going to get any better with that incarnation, then a lot of times people will get cancer and then will depart this world fairly rapidly, so that they can move on to start fresh after they have whatever kind of rehabilitation and things that go on for them in between. Um, so for those types of individuals, uh, from what I've read, they will not be amenable to healing. So that would be an instance where someone goes to a very competent and well-known New Age healer or something to get help with their cancer, and the one that has helped many, and yet this person doesn't help their cancer at all, and it gets worse and they die. So before that completely obliterates somebody's faith in the whole process, uh, and similarly, I'm sure people's faith in modern medicine is obliterated quite often when a certain doctor or type of application cures a lot of people, but then it doesn't for this particular instance. The one that matters to you, for instance. Um, so keep that in mind. But apparently, there are a good number of people with cancer that are fully ready and capable of being healed, and this is for them. This is for those people that are eager to continue with life and have so much more they would like to do, and uh, the answer apparently is you can. So, without making this into a huge diatribe, what's the deal? How do you do it? How do you cure your cancer? Okay, so I'll go to the raw material. Now, this echoes a lot of readings from other sources, but the raw material says it very clearly, and I've read it very recently, and it's what just inspired me to talk about this. According to the raw material, cancer is there for many or most people because those people were thinking angry thoughts, and because this planet, this environment, is already flipping over to fourth density. And apparently the level of vibration, like the color, the essence, is truly green ray, is truly fourth density, which is the next step already for the environment, for the planet, even though the humans, the people, aren't ready en masse. So there's kind of you know, it's a disjointed thing. There's a disjunction there. Uh, but because the environment is fourth density, thoughts are more readily manifesting in people's body. Apparently, in fourth density, that's one way that uh, truth is confronted in the self. Because apparently, in fourth density, there's no hiding. There's no, everyone knows what everyone else is thinking. Everyone knows everything about themselves. And so, if somebody's an angry type person and thinking angry type thoughts, that will immediately start to manifest in their body. Things immediately start to manifest. Uh, so that you can work on them rapidly and improve. And so the take-home message is: if your anger towards something, someone, whatever it is, yourself, the cancer itself, or who knows what it is, if your anger has caused this cancer and is causing it to grow and multiply, that's how you stop it. So I would encourage all people who are cancer sufferers and who want to improve, want to get rid of it, to take a step back, take a deep breath, and just search your thoughts, search your emotions. Just calm down and think about, what are you angry about? Can you feel that source of anger, something that makes you anxious, something that burns you up, something that makes you irate? Search for those things. Heck, if you want, make a list, write them down, and kind of try to prioritize them. What makes you the most angry, and whatnot. And quite often, when you think a certain thought that's intense like that, you'll feel a pain or something at a specific location of your body and things. And it would not surprise me that if that was the location where the cancer was growing, for instance, and that might tell you, boy, you've hit the right one. But even if you don't, feel something like that, what I would do is just make a laundry list of the things that you are angry about, especially the ones that, people, for instance, somebody who's done something in your life and you just have not been able to forgive them and you could never forgive them, that type of thing. Look for that stuff. Find out what it is and then begin the process of forgiveness. Forgive them, okay? No matter what it is. Pretend that those are their cards that they've been dealt and they've laid them on the table in hurting you and whatever they did. You have to accept that hand that they've been dealt, accept them for who they are, and accept everything for what has happened. Realize there is a higher purpose for everything and let it go. Replace that anger with love. Begin to love them, because begin to realize that there's more to them than just whatever petty thing they did that made you angry, or terribly. They could have murdered your entire family or something. It could be major. So I'm not going to say petty necessarily in every sense. So whatever it is, understand that there is a higher purpose. There is more going on that you don't understand and they don't understand, and no matter what the reason, no matter why they did whatever they did, or why people are the way they are that makes you angry, or anything, forgive. Learn to let it go and replace that love with forgiveness. So realize that this problem of disease really is a mental problem and a problem of learning to love, replacing hate, replacing anger with love, and not in a like covering up kind of hypnosis. We'll just like layer suggestion on top of this until you repress. No, repression is the problem. That's how these things start to manifest physically. You have to really engage the full thing, feel all the anger, feel everything that led up to it. The whole process. You have to dwell on it, deal with it, understand, and keep going over that and finding that understanding. And if it, many times I'm sure it will involve contacting that person and just talking about it and telling them that it's okay, and working through it, letting go, communicating, um, if that's even possible. I know a lot of times people may be dead and gone or whatever, and there's no way, but still, on a spiritual level, you can think about them and contact them in some metaphysical sense and forgive. Um, so that isn't the entire story, according to the raw material and many other sources, I'm sure. But that's the first major step because apparently that's the source cause of the cancer in many cases. I don't want to say every case, but many cases. So the next two things, there are two more things according to the raw material. Once you have begun that process of forgiveness and melting away that anger, gradually let it just work it out and mentally keep working on it and understanding and finding new ways to approach it and even pray if that works for you. Definitely pray to God, whoever uh, the higher power that you reach to, reach to them out for assistance, reach to your higher self, which is your future self that's already in contact with God, your direct line to God. Reach out to your own higher mind that's in connection with the divine, your pathway to God, and ask for help to work this out, to find a way, help you to find a way to work through this anger and let it go. So once you've done that, and once you've begun that process, and you're like, okay, what else is there? If I succeed in doing this, what else do I have to do to really make this happen? And the other two things that the raw material mentioned are number one, forgive yourself. Okay, I'm sure that uh, this process of anger and all the circumstances that surrounded it are going to also usually involve a high degree of self recrimination, where you're beating yourself up, you're angry at yourself, and you feel guilty, you feel terrible for having done things or said things or felt a certain way, or even for being so angry and having felt angry or whatever. Forgive yourself on all levels. Do another laundry list, a mental kind of, where you go over things and search within yourself to find any sense in which you feel guilty about yourself, you feel inferior, you feel like you regret something you've done, you wish you weren't a certain way or didn't do a certain thing or hadn't been a certain way. So find those things and forgive yourself the same way you're forgiving that other person or forgiving God or whoever you're blaming or angry at, or whatever, for the same way. Forgive yourself. Let that go. Begin that process, and then ask for help. You know, from the higher powers that be that are all there to help you. Ask for help to straighten that out and forgive yourself. Um, and once you've embarked on that path and you feel like you're well on your way to doing that, the final thing is to respect the self. So that would, at its core, I'm sure, involve realizing that you are the creator. The raw material goes on and on about this. Some of its basic, you know, uh, preschool level, in spiritual terms, preschool level exercises it talks about are seeing the creator in the mirror. Look in the mirror, see the creator. Look out around you in the creation, the whole material illusion around you, and see the creator. Okay, look at other individuals, other entities, and see the creator. So seeing God, seeing the creator, the one infinite creator of all things in everything and in yourself, that can be, and perhaps must be in some sense, the true step, first step, major step, necessary step to forgiving yourself, to see the divine in yourself And yes, there are distortions. Of course, that's what makes things what they are. The limitations, what people may call sin or evil or things being fallen or degraded or inferior or warped or something. Those are just distortions. They're distortions of the divine. And those distortions give us our individuality. And as we grow spiritually, those distortions become less and less. Um, so and understand that process. So when you see those flaws in yourself, when you see those mistakes, whatever you're looking at, realize they're just distortions of the divine. They are just the natural process. They're the way things should be. We are all here to have those distortions, exist with them, operate in the environment around us with those distortions and through them, and gradually grow in understanding and awareness and love and appreciation of the divine and all things around us and within ourselves. Um, so respecting the self, of course, that has to do with forgiving the self, but especially respecting the self. Once you start to understand fundamentally that uh, the Creator is within you, and this is what Jesus was trying to tell people when he's saying he's the Son of God. Uh, They asked him, "What do you mean? How can you say that?" He quoted a psalm, and in the psalm it says, "Ye are children of God." Okay, it's talking about in the sense in which we are all children of God, and as the raw material points out, and many other sources point out, we are all the Creator. There's God within us, and we are simply portions of individual awareness of separateness, the illusion of separateness. That was like for each one of us, there's this idea of separateness that occurred, and that idea of separateness from the divine became us, and that gradually expands and grows, and until it becomes the full Creator and one with all, one with the Creator, uh, and you can kind of view that as coming home to the Creator, but in the sense that you grow yourself, are growing and becoming more and more the Creator, within more and more divine, with less and less distortion as time goes on. So that should be a source of great respect. Okay, uh, once you understand that, it should be easy to respect yourself. And then you realize how yourself becomes important. And so the raw material points out how diet becomes very important. If you respect yourself and care about yourself, then there's more of a motivation to um, eat properly or do things that are uh, nutritionally healthy, good eating habits, and maybe even fasting from time to time. And incidentally, in this case of curing cancer, while you're working through these thoughts, while you're finding the sources of your anger and forgiving them, while you're forgiving yourself, and while you're learning how to respect yourself more and more, um, to also, man, I'm like losing my train of thought here. Uh, Fast, yes, while you're going through the process, fasting was an important thing. And this has been found in conventional modern medicine too. I was involved in scientific research in the life sciences for a few years, and that was definitely found to be helpful in aging research. They found that caloric restriction, which was regular fasting for animals, helped them live longer and lessened the damage that contributes to aging. But in disease, certainly, in lots of cases of disease, conventional science and medicine have found that fasting helps. If you want to speak of it scientifically, fasting begins the term of the process of autophagy. Autophagy is where a cell begins to eat itself, and it begins to more aggressively break down parts of itself that it doesn't need and recycle them. And the body in general starts to do this. And especially in the case of cancer, where you have thoughts that are building a mass of cells that's growing and growing and growing out of control. Well, that building takes a lot of energy. That takes a lot of food, and so when you're eating, you're feeding that as well. And conversely, when you're fasting, you're starving that cancerous growth as well. So, of course, that can be helpful. And the raw material says there's more metaphysical reasons even why fasting will greatly help you in this process when you're curing your cancer by letting go of the anger and finding out your sources of disrespect for yourself and finding ways to forgive yourself and respect yourself more. So that's the gist of it. Now there are other sources. I think is kind of blurred, or those have been kind of obfuscated for me because a lot of them, Paul Solomon in particular comes to mind, harmonizes so well with what the raw material is saying. It's kind of, included in that in my mind. Um, One thing that does pop up in my mind is Casey. Casey made the statement that he who eats 2 or 3 almonds a day need never fear cancer. I'll get my visual aid. Hold on. I've been doing this ever since I read that back in the late 90s. Um, just because, not because I don't know, I just thought, sure, why not? I can eat almonds, especially just a few of them. So I get some of these at the store. I buy the whole natural ones there's no salt, they're not roasted or anything. They're just natural almonds. And eat a few of those. Um, Now, in the scientific, in modern medicine and science, they have discovered this, and they have discovered that there are many other things too. Like there are many kinds of berries that have similar chemicals, and some of the same chemicals that are in the almonds, that are great anti-cancer. So I'm sure at some level that's what Casey was getting at. It may not be the tremendous cure it sounds like, but that is what he said. He who eats 2 or 3 almonds a day need never fear cancer. But nevertheless, even if it's not that immediately helpful for a lot of people, it still can be helpful. So that'd be like one dietary thing. Just get out there, do some research, and find the natural foods that have been helpful anti-cancer agents. And the dietary things, just general dietary guidelines, eating healthy, not eating refined sugar, definitely not sugary drinks, please, no. Um, when you have your sugar, the problem with sugar, this is just an aside, which I'm sure relates to cancer in a large degree, is fructose, and fructose is part of sugar. Sugar, the sucrose molecule gets split into fructose and glucose immediately in the body. And the glucose is fine. Your cells immediately use it for energy. Requires no further metabolism. The fructose, however, requires many steps of metabolism in the liver, and it's metabolized in a lot of the same pathways that alcohol is metabolized, and creates toxins in the liver the same way alcohol does, contributes to fatty liver the same way that alcohol does. It blocks the signal where the signaling process that tells you to burn energy and tells you to store energy instead. So it contributes to obesity, heart disease, cancer, diabetes. Metabolic syndrome in general is caused fundamentally by fructose, and fructose is in everything. It is because sugar is so cheap and high fructose corn syrup is so cheap, and so those things are used in all the foods. In all of our processed foods, they put extra sugar in them, extra sweets in them to cover up the taste of the preservatives. So basically, processed food equals bad. Sweets equal bad. And now you can make healthy sweets. You can make them just with glucose, and I've started doing that. I buy glucose powder. This is turning into a separate diatribe on diet too, which should probably be a separate video in and of itself. But since this was a part of cancer that the raw material talks about, I think is important. This is glucose. It's expensive as heck. It's like $17 for this little bag, which is like 1 kilogram, 2.2 pounds. But that's because there's like 15-step process or something it takes to separate the glucose from the fructose. So that's the problem. They're very similar molecules, and most of the ways to create them create both, and you've got to separate them, and it takes all these steps. Um, keep that in the background as my visual aid. Here, there you go. So yeah, that's those are just some general dietary suggestions. People in general, I think, know it's healthy. You know, they know that fast food is bad for you and things, and many of the diets out there, like the keto diet and stuff, I'm sure contribute to health largely. But the general health guidelines that have resonated with me from these various sources and elsewhere um, are things like that. You know, stay away from refined sugar, definitely sugary drinks. Um, and the fructose that's okay for you is in natural foods like bananas. Bananas are great because they have potassium. They help you control sodium intake too. And we all get way too much sodium usually. So, but the reason why these fruits aren't bad for you, even though they contain tons of fructose, is they contain fiber. Okay, the fructose is bound up with the fiber, and it takes your body time to digest and separate those things out. And a lot of the fructose gets metabolized in your digestive tract by the bacteria there. And this lessens the impact on your liver of having to metabolize so much fructose. It spreads it out over time. So the things that are harmful for the liver are just slamming it with fructose immediately, like when you drink pop or Kool-Aid or juice. Even juice is big. You know, it's like that's the thing a lot of people don't understand. The fruit is great, the juice is bad because once you juice it, okay, you've separated out most of the fiber and then you've isolated most of that sugar. It's dissolved in the liquid in the juice, and all of a sudden you're getting something that's as bad for you or almost as bad for you as far as in terms of this fructose being bad. It's as bad. The orange juice will be as bad for you as just drinking Mountain Dew or something or whatever. Um, so the key there is not to avoid all sweets, just to make sure you're getting your sweets with fiber. So like I'll make oatmeal cookies and put glucose in them. There's like no fructose in them at all. You know, go through the ingredients and everything, unless I put raisins on it. There'll be fructose in the raisins, but again, that's in fruit. That's in the raisin. Um, so those are some general dietary guidelines. You know, fasting is good on a regular basis. I haven't gotten in the process of fasting a lot. I'm sure it would help if I did, but that can be very helpful. So staying away from the sweet drinks. Make sure your sweets are fruits, natural, you know, actual fruits, and stay away from the juices and stuff. And of course, you know, but the fructose, look, you know, people say fat is bad and cholesterol is bad and all this stuff. And yeah, but from the research I've read, I should link to the video. The guy, he's a researcher in University of California, Berkeley or something. Um, and he's got this great lecture. He's one of the key researchers into the metabolism of fructose and why sugars are bad for you and stuff. Um, but what was I getting at? Losing my train of thought again. So yeah, just make sure you're getting your sugar with fruits, and oh yeah, the fructose is what makes the fats bad for you. So you could end up, if you're avoiding the sweet drinks, minimizing the fructose in your diet, you can start to eat higher fat and more things, more cholesterol and things, and they're not going to harm you because it's like the linchpin in metabolic syndrome that makes those fats and things bad turns out to be fructose because of the way it involves the metabolism and how your body metabolizes those things. So yeah, I think the key step there, the key thing is getting rid of fructose. Make sure your only fructose you're getting is in the sugar that's in fruits, because it already contains fiber. Don't juice them, just eat the fruit, um, and that's going to do it. They go avoid the sweet drinks, that'll do it. But of course, I'm sure it wouldn't hurt to do the other things, you know, that people say are healthy, staying away from red meats the majority of the time, probably, and staying away from fat and cholesterol and starch and whatever. But yeah, just I don't want this to turn into a 3-hour long thing about diet, because I'm definitely not an expert on diet, and that's worth another video or three in and of itself. But as it relates to cancer, so apparently diet is important as well, and that's part of respecting the self. So those were the three things. So to recap again, to cure your cancer, or if you're communicating this to someone else, for them to cure their cancer, number one, find the anger that caused the cancer in the first place. Okay, find it. And to do that, personally, I would just find all sources of anger. Everything that ties you in a knot you're angry about, and especially things that your thoughts keep returning to, find whatever that is, work through it, and let it go. You have to, that has to melt away. Work through that. You have to find how to get through that. So the anger, forgiving yourself, that's number two, forgive yourself. And number three, respect yourself, and that has to do with fasting and diet. Fasting immediately while you're getting the cancer cured, and diet from then on, and at the same time too, of course. So get rid of the anger, forgive yourself, respect yourself. Those are the three things. And again, if you have done a fantastic job of all of those three things, and you still end up dying from cancer, well, I would say with confidence then that was meant to be. Because like I said, cancer is the way, one major way that many entities are apparently using right now. It's more like their higher mind helping them use that to terminate an incarnation for many people, so that they can work through whatever they need to work through in the interim, and then in what the Urantia book would call the Morantia realms, the astral planes around Earth, where they're helping people work through things before they come back. And then if you're ready to come back or want to come back for another incarnation, which many do, that's why we're here, to work through the wonderful lessons that can happen here at the end of this transition from third to fourth density. Then you can come back. So that's if the cancer isn't responding to these things, isn't responding to anything, that may very well be why. It may be your time, but remember, it's not the end. Of course, it's just another transition, another way to kind of take a breather, recoup, reorient, and then come back in with a fresh start on things. So I hope this helped people. Definitely, I think this is information that really needs to get out there for people who have ears to hear it. Let them hear. And if you think it's all New Age mumbo jumbo, that's fine. Pursue whatever other methods you need or can to pursue your cure for cancer, by all means. But for those who wanted it, this is definitely what I wanted to offer. So please, like I said, this is not the last word. This is what I understand at this point, based upon the sources I've read. And I'm sure, there's more. And I'm sure I have a lot to learn from you people and other things you've read, things you just may know or have occurred to you, or that you've gleaned from somewhere else, whether it's a psychic source or a more legit source or whatever. Let me know. Let me know in the comments. Respond with other videos, or just call me up and we can talk about it. Maybe we can have a video interview or something. That'd be awesome. Get more people on here and actually have conversations and talk about stuff. So, yeah, I hope this really, really helps. I really hope it helps people, and spread the word. And happy cancer curing. Let's move forward. Take care, people.